God bless you all. My name is Dinorah Ponce, and today I'd like to share a word with you that God has placed in my heart. And my prayer is that it'll minister to you in some way. Now, as many of you know, I'm a mom of 3 kids, ranging in ages from 3 months to 4 years old. And it's exciting to see your children reach certain milestones. And one of the most exciting yet scary milestones is learning to walk. Now, I remember when Joey and I would stretch our arms out to Luca or Camila, and we would tell them, "Look at Mama, look at Papa," always reminding them not to look at the floor or not to look around them, but to keep their eyes fixed on us the entire time as they took those first steps. And I would see the excitement in their eyes as they actually took those first steps. But I could also notice the moment when fear would come in, when they would take their eyes off of me and look around them. In that instant, that's when they would fall. Similarly with us, when we go through seasons in our lives that are new, that are scary, or just struggling in life, we sometimes allow faith to waver. And in those moments, we might allow things to come into our lives, distractions that might cause us to lose our faith, lose our way, and lose our gaze on Jesus. And it is in those moments that can lead us to despair. But when I look at the Word of God, and I look specifically in the Gospels, in the book of Matthew, the story when Jesus walks in the water, I'm encouraged in so many ways. In that story, the disciples are sitting in a boat, and they've been struggling all night to get to the other side. They've been battling the high waves and the strong winds, and they have made no headway. They haven't gotten to the other side. And all of a sudden, they see this man walking towards them. And after Jesus reassures them that it's him and not a ghost, Peter asks Jesus to call out to him because he wants to go out to Jesus and walk on the water as he is doing. So Jesus calls out to Peter and Jesus says, "Come." And so Peter, in that moment, believes that even though he's in the middle of a storm, if Jesus is calling out to him, he believes that he will be able to do it because Jesus is calling him out to do it. So he steps out in faith, he steps out into the water, and he walks in the water. He does what Jesus has called him to do. And when I think, in our lives, I believe that the Word of God is telling us in that passage that, in the middle of our storms, in the middle of this pandemic, Jesus is calling out to us to believe that he has already overcome. He has already conquered it all. And we can also overcome and get to the other side if we believe in Jesus, if we keep our eyes on Jesus, But the story goes on to say that Peter said, when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, Peter cried out. So in that instant, when Peter's eyes turned to the winds and to the waves, he began to sink. And that reminds me, of my son and my daughter. When they took their eyes off of me, that's the moment when they would fall. Or even myself, when I'm going through a struggle or to a trial, I keep my eyes on those things and not on Jesus, everything seems so overwhelming, like I can't get through to the other side, like I won't be able to make it. And I feel like God is telling us in this passage and in that section specifically that if we don't keep our eyes on Jesus, we won't be able to make it. We won't be able to get through it to the other side. And, this story has always centered around Peter, right? We always think about Peter in the story, but I've often wondered, what were the disciples thinking? What was their perspective as they saw this story, as they saw everything unravel before them? Were they encouraged that Peter was actually walking on the water? Like, wow, look at our brother Peter. He's actually walking on the water like Jesus. Were they, were they fearful, that maybe Peter was going to drown when he was sinking in the water? Or were they discouraged when they realized that Peter took his eyes off of Jesus? He took his gaze off of Jesus and began to sing. Were they discouraged in that moment? And, that also reminds me that we are like Peter, we are being watched by disciples. There are different disciples in our lives. We have people that are unsaved loved ones, friends or family, even children that are watching us. They're watching our reaction. How are we responding to the storms and the trials in our lives? How are we responding to this pandemic? Are we responding in faith, or are we responding in fear? Imagine if Peter would have kept his eyes on Jesus and actually made it all the way. What an impact. What a powerful impact that would have had on the disciples and encouraged them as well, But I also think they were at least able to see a glimpse, right, of what you can accomplish when you keep your eyes on Jesus. They were able to see that Peter, however many steps it was, he was actually walking on the water because he had his eyes on Jesus. And that just reminds us, that We can weather the storm and we can walk through it. We can move through it just like Peter did. Even for that small moment, Peter was able to do that. And so, let us be an example to those that are watching. Let us be an example to others in our lives. And always reminded that we are being watched, and we can encourage others by responding to those storms and responding to those trials by faith and not by fear. So, brothers and sisters, I encourage you that as we go through this pandemic together, there may be other storms and other struggles and other trials that you may be going through, that you may be facing. But no matter what it is, let us keep our eyes on Jesus. Let us keep our gaze on Jesus. No matter what, He will ensure that we make it to the other side. Brothers and sisters, God bless you and have a blessed day.